this table for just a couple of minutes? Oh, there he is. Okay. Peter, I'm going to have you come down that way. Okay. All right. So since Peter is here, we all know Peter Facinelli from his memorable role as Dr. Carlisle Cullen in the Twilight film series. But Peter has had a long career filled with diverse performances in both film and television. In addition to his acting assignments, he's also ventured into producing, directing, and writing. He's one of those actors who is constantly working and always in demand. We are so fortunate to have him with us today at Sinister Con, and I'm happy to report that his pale complexion has cleared up considerably since his Twilight days. I can vouch for that because I've talked to Peter a couple of times today. So please welcome Peter Facinelli. Peter, nice to have you here. Nice to see you again. You bet. Yeah, just sit right there. Hopefully your mic is on. Let me check it real quick. Yeah, it's on. Yeah. It's on it?
Hello? Hello?
Here, let me get this one and I'll turn it on. This one should be on. Test. Oh, wait. There it goes.
Hello? Oh, I got two of them.
Are we okay?
It's like after post-game. I had a terrible game last night. I don't know. I could have got that rebound. And
Peter, let's start off with some background. And you were born in New York City.
Yes.
Your parents were Italian immigrants.
Yes.
What kind of a kid were you?
Wow, that's a good question. I tell you, I was a very shy kid. Very, very shy. I had three older sisters, and I was always kind of like doing things to try to get attention, which probably why I became an actor, because I didn't get much. I had to fight for attention. My family's Italian, so they're very loud, and like, so I was always the quiet one in the family. And even when I go home now, like, I'm usually the more quiet one. So they're just they're very demanding, and you know. I remember I brought a girlfriend over once for dinner, and she said, "Why is your family all yelling at each other?" I was like, "Oh no, they're not. They love each other. That's just the way they talk to each other." So I was quite shy, and I remember I wasn't there. There's actors that are like, you know, look at me and tap dancing and, you know, spinning plates, and I was more. I didn't want to be looked at all, you know. So I remember I got a play once and that I had to do. I was like second grade. It was like a school play, and I called in. I told my mom I was sick because I didn't want to do it. I couldn't do it, so I couldn't get up in front of people. And I feel like I'm in therapy right now.
That's the idea, Peter.
And so, so I didn't do the play, and then cut to many years later. My mom, you know, because she was. There was 4 kids to take care of it. My TV became my housekeeper. It was like the person who took care of it. My mom would cook dinner and just throw me in front of the TV. And I loved watching TV shows and films. And I remember seeing a movie. I don't know. Has anyone ever seen Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's an older movie, but it's Robert Redford and Paul Newman, and they looked like they were having so much fun. It was like cowboys, you know. And I said, wow, I want to do that because those guys look like they're having fun. And so I told my parents, and I was like 10, 11, or 12. I said, you know, they said, what do you want to be? They'd always ask you, what are you going to be when you grow up? I said, so finally I said, I'm going to be an actor. And they kind of laughed because I was like so shy that I, you know, and so I didn't like being laughed at. So the next time they said, what do you want to be? I said, a lawyer. Because like, oh, well, lawyer in the family, you know, that's very respectable. And so, so for years I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. And so I went to college. I never did a play in high school. She's like, oh no. And like, wasn't part of the theater crowd. And I would go to school, and I was so shy in high school that I went to a school with like 3,500 kids. It was a big high school. And I was so shy I couldn't even get in the lunch line because I'd feel embarrassed to like, what if I drop something and the whole cafeteria looks at you? You know what I mean? I would die. Like, so I would for the first 3 years of high school, I ate pretzels and orange juice because there was a lady in the back of the room that sold pretzels, and while everybody was online, I would go to the other side and grab a pretzel and orange juice and sit down, and you know, and then by senior year, I was like, I think I can do it. I think I can, and I got a hamburger. And I was like, big guy on campus over here, you know, got a hamburger, and it was all right. And then I went to college. I went to St. John's University in New York, and I was going to study pre-law. And one of the electives was like basket weaving or acting 101. And I took this acting 101 class, and I really enjoyed it. Like, I felt for the first time where I could be free in these characters that I'm playing, because nobody was looking at me. They were looking at these people that I was playing. So I could explore different parts of myself and nobody, and not be embarrassed by it, you know. So I took the acting 101 class, and then shortly after I met this, the universe just kind of lined things up for me. I met this man who was a manager, and he said, I have an acting class, you should come take my acting class. And you know, sometimes those things don't work out, but this one did, and I took his acting class, and then he helped me transfer into NYU, and I studied theater there. And so my parents were confused, because they said, well, what do you mean you're going to NYU? It's like 4 times as much money, and you're studying acting? And I said, oh yeah, because they're from Italy, so they don't know, you know. I said, well, you know, as a lawyer, you have to get up in front of people, so it's a requirement that I need to take these acting classes to be a good lawyer. Oh, okay. So I kind of tricked them. And then I went to NYU. I studied theater there, and again, I just kind of felt at home, being not on stage where people were looking at me, but being submersed in characters where I could explore different parts of myself. And so I quickly after, I don't think I even graduated, I started working, and I was very fortunate. My dad was a waiter, so I always joked that he waited enough tables where I didn't have to. So I started working before I even graduated, and worked solid till now.
Now, did you go to the Atlantic Theater Company?
I did study with the Atlantic
acting
Theater
school,
Company.
and you had some rather famous teachers there, didn't you?
Yeah.
Who were some of your teachers? 'Cause I think they would be very familiar to the
W.H. Macy.
audience.
W.H. Macy.
Bill Macy.
Was one of the teachers. What's the girl that was on Desperate Housewives?
Oh, his wife, Felicity.
Yeah, Felicity Huffman. Was one of the teachers. They would come and do guest
Giancarlo
lectures.
Esposito.
Giancarlo Esposito.
Giancarlo.
They would come in and do like guest lectures. I was just talking to a fan about this outside. You know, there's all these different acting techniques, you know, and you learn them, and they're all just kind of like paths to basically not be self-conscious, and also to live in the moment, you know. So they're not something that, like, because someone asked me, like, what technique do you use? And I've studied them all, so like for me it's more of an amalgamation of whatever I need in the toolbox to make those characters come to life, and whatever I need to make the scenes kind of work. And so we were talking about method versus like other techniques. So method is, I'm sure you've heard the word, the method. And the method is more like you submerge yourself fully in that character, and then like people have to call you by your name sometimes as that character, because you don't want to break the illusion. And you're living, obviously, you know, if you're playing somebody from the 1800s, you're driving home in a car. You're not driving home in a horse and buggy. But you stay as much as possible within the reality of that space. I like to play pretend, so that's what my job is. So like there's parts of that I like to take, but I also find that's a little selfish too, because it becomes all about you and less about the other people in the scene. And so the technique we were taught was Meisner, which is more about the other person. So when you're in the scenes, it's all about connecting with taking your self-consciousness and putting your awareness on that person instead of yourself. You know, you're putting it on the other person, and then they're telling you based on how they're acting, how you're gonna react, and there's goals that you try to achieve in the scenes. And then at the end of the day, all that is just preparation work, because you're not really thinking of goals and technique when you're doing the scenes. You're living in the moment, you know, and responding in the moments. But that's what acting school is all for. That's why some people don't really sometimes need acting school. You can learn on the job, you can take classes, but it's mostly to, I find, become less self-conscious about what you're doing, where to put your hands, and what you know, when you're focused on yourself, like how am I appealing? It's like all these techniques get your focus off of yourself and put it on other things, and then to live truthfully in those moments.
So you think that kind of formal training is important to the development of an actor personally?
You know, I say this, for me it was, because I needed some sort of training. I think anybody can get a job as an actor. You know, anybody in this room can get a job as an actor. To get a career as an actor, you need to develop a craft. And if that craft is, you know, taking classes, or if you're working on a show, or if you get a show and all of a sudden you're working 7 years on a show and you're developing your craft, and whatever it takes to develop that is that can sustain longevity. But like sometimes, you know, there are people that have never acted before, and you put them in a right role in the right movie. I mean, it happened once with in a Tom Hanks movie. That guy won an Oscar. You know, it's just like he was playing pretty much himself. Because look, we're all actors. Every day you act. You know, you play the part of a mother, you play the part of a father, you play the part of a brother, you play the part of a boss or employee, and you're shifting your you know, your personality accordingly. You act differently with your friends than you do with your kids, and you know, vice versa. So it's just a matter of being able to take that and hone it into a craft of some sorts for a career.
Peter, what was your first professional acting job?
My first, I'll tell you, my first professional acting job. I'll tell you my first acting job, and then I'll tell you my first professional. My first acting job, I was on a train. I was 16 years old, and I was coming home from Manhattan. I went to go see some friends, and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was by myself, and these guys came in, bad news bears looking guys, you know, and they saw me, and they surrounded me, and they all sat down, one here, one there, two this way, and I was in trouble. And so I had heard somewhere, if you start acting crazy, people don't mess with you. Because that becomes unpredictable, right? So I was waiting for them, because if you look them in the eye, they say, what are you looking at? You know, they were going to start some trouble. So I started acting real crazy. Started talking to myself. Hey, get out of here. What are you doing? Talking to me, man? And they started laughing. I made them laugh. But they didn't bother me, and they didn't attack me. And then the next stop, I just kind of walked myself off, and whew, that's an Oscar award-winning performance there. And then first professional was first time I got a paycheck was a movie called Angela. It was a movie that Arthur Miller's daughter wrote and directed, Rebecca Miller, who's actually married to Daniel Day-Lewis now. And she wrote a movie called Angela, and I played Lucifer, the fallen angel. I remember I had just a few scenes. I went to Sundance Film Festival. It was like in 1995. They were very artsy kind of films. The film dealt with like a manic depressive mother. It was like not a very commercial movie, but it was like a very, you know, indie kind of film. And it was kind of funny because I had to wear a lot of makeup in that one too. So I was Lucifer, which is the fallen angel, and they had white makeup from head to toe, like even whiter, powdery makeup than Twilight, and and then I had hooves, you know, and these huge angel wings from Angels of America they had gotten from this play that were like spans like 4 feet on each side. So I remember it was. I got the job. I was so excited because this is the first time I was gonna. My whole goal was like, hey, I just want to be able to prove I could get a paycheck, you know, as an actor, and then I did, and then I was like, oh, I want to make a career out of it. But my only first goal was like, I want to get paid for it, and this was like I was getting paid for it, and so I I went and we did a costume test. It was like a costume and makeup test. I remember it was upstate New York, and they drove me all the way up there, and it was really nice. And the director was there, and the cameraman was there, and they put a few hours it took to put all this. It was like white clown paint makeup, but it was like all over my body, you know, and I had like a loincloth on. Basically, that's all I wore. And they had these wings that they were fitting, and then so a couple hours later they said, "Hey, we're gonna go to lunch. You want to come?" So looking at myself, I don't know if I can walk around like this, and I got hooves on. Might be weird. And I said, "Well, we'll bring you some back." I said, "Okay." And we were in an abandoned house. Like that was the set that they were kind of like, you know, going to shoot on. So they left me there. I was like 19, 20. I was like 20 years old. And I was by myself. I was sitting around this abandoned house. The water didn't work. I don't think the toilets didn't work. And it was like 2 hours. They didn't come back. And I was like, I wonder if I'm stuck here. Like, look. So then I got really bored, and there was this little like window that went out to this like ledge port, like this roof. What do you call that? Like an awning, you know? And so I just kind of crawled out on the roof, and I just perched up on the roof, and I watched these kids with bicycles come around. And one would stop, and then they'd go dart off, and then they came back, and and then I looked out, there's like 30 like bikes out there, and they're pointing up, and they were freaked out. Because this was an abandoned house in the neighborhood, and there was an angel or demon sitting like a gargoyle on an awning, and I was having so much fun. And then I stood up, and they all darted, and they all kind of ran away. And then they came back. I had lunch, and I remember they said, "Hey, so the water doesn't work." This is indie filmmaking. They said, "We don't have any water in the house, but the neighbor said you could take a shower in their house." Okay, so I go to the neighbors. Ding dong, hi, loincloth. They said I could take a shower in here. Yeah, a bath. They go in there. They didn't have a shower. They only had a bathtub.
Oh,
so I was like, now I'm taking a bath in some strange house that I don't know. And I start scrubbing my arm. Oh no, this is not coming off. And so like I come out about an hour and a half later, I ruined that lady's tub. It was like white chalky white all over. And I came out, it was like patched of like white here, white here, white here. And I was like, it didn't come off for like a week. and I went to school. I had like, you know, acting school that week. And they said, "What happened to you?" And I said, "I'm a working actor now."
I would call that a memorable first job.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about the film that you made, Can't Hardly Wait? Because I got to tell you a personal story.
Yeah.
When we found out that you were going to be appearing at Sinister Halloween Con, a couple members of the panel team who are sneaking out the door right now, they were very impressed that you had been in the film Can't Hardly Wait.
Yeah.
And so,
Like
yes.
Dexter. If you
So
haven't
what do you
seen it,
remember
go
about
and watch it. It's a fun movie. That was one of my first big studio movies that I did. I got this movie called Can't Hardly Wait, and I was playing like the jock, the jerky jock role, and so I got hired, and it takes place in one night. It's like the senior party. Super fun movie. So many great actors came out of that movie. At the time, we didn't know that these actors, because we were all starting. So like years later, I was like I remember sitting on a swing with like two extras, and one of them was Selma Blair. I don't even think she had like one line. But at the time, I was like, "Hi, I'm Peter. Hi, I'm Selma. Nice to meet you." And then years later, I was like, "Oh my God, that's Selma Blair. She's on this movie." And like Jason, what's his name, from How I Met Your Mother. Siegel was in it. It was like he had a cat, like a one line in it. Seth Green was in it. Ethan Embry, Jennifer Love Hewitt. Great, fun movie. Very lot of fun quotes. It still holds up. I promise you. Like I went to a screening 6 months ago, and they said, "Hey, will you intro the movie?" Because we're doing like a special screening of it. And it's like, I don't know, it's 2000, so it's 20. 25 years old. And I said, yeah, I'll come. I'll stay for the first 15 minutes. I'll duck out the back. And then I was watching. And I was like, I'll stay for 20 minutes. I'll stay for 30 minutes. Oh my God, this is so fun. 40 minutes. I watched the whole movie. It was like, the music was great. Like, the characters were fun. Like, if you haven't seen it, watch it. Funny,
Yeah,
funny stuff.
Like I said, my team members have been raving
Yeah.
about it
Very,
since we
a
found
lot,
out you were
people still
coming.
quote that movie, which is always,
Yes.
it always makes me feel good when a movie
Yes.
stands the test of time, because people still, like, are there quoting it and, like, talking about it.
Absolutely. You were in a television series called Fastlane.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that, in reading about it, I did not see it. But from what I read about it, about this group of undercover cops that can
Yeah.
use everything that's been repossessed and confiscated in their solving of crimes, if
Yeah.
I have that right.
Yeah.
It seemed almost ahead of its time.
It was in a lot of ways. You know, because we were doing like slow motion cranks camera stuff. People just weren't doing that on TV, and I think, you know, at the time it was successful. It was just it was weird timing, because it came out and it was like immediately a hit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they took it off because it was on Fox for baseball. And I hate when back then they would do that. They would take the show off and they would play the baseball series games. And then they you know, when people came back, a lot of people that didn't watch baseball would go catch another show and just stay on it. So when we came back, we kind of lost some numbers, and then we're kind of on the bubble. So we only got one season of it, but it was so much fun, because the characters were super cool, and it was kind of like Bad Boys. You guys like Bad Boys, you know? So it was like, it wasn't meant to be like SWAT, where you're coming in. It was like, I'm gonna come in, dive over the table, do a tuck and roll, and then I'm gonna pull out two guns and blow up that thing over there, just because it looks cool. And so it was a lot of fun. And my character was way cooler than me, like super cool, because I remember he wore like leather pants, and I was like, I don't know, I'm gonna pull that off. I don't wear that. So I had to wear these leather pants. So they gave them to me to break them in, because they were so stiff at first. I'm like trying to be cool in these stiff leather pants, and taking my daughter at the time to kindergarten. Hi, I'm doing a show. I'm not just trying to be cool. But that character is really fun and cool. And Bill Bellamy was in it. He used to make me laugh like every day, because he's a comedian. So like he would try out stuff in the makeup chair. We'd be in the makeup chair. I could tell he was like trying out his new set. So I was like, I'd have like you know, my own comedy show every morning with him. Tiffany Thiessen was in it. And she was great. Super fun.
You're really well known for your diversity of roles that you play. I mean, you've been in things like 6 Feet Under, SWAT, Supergirl. You were in 7 seasons playing another doctor, and Nurse Jackie. What goes into your decision to accept a role?
Well, look, there's actors that you know, they kind of play a version of themselves. I'm always jealous of those guys, because like I don't know how to do that. I think it goes back to me being super shy, you know, because I always find it more fun when I get to play things I haven't played before, you know. It's like, so when I line up my characters, like, you know, Mike Dexter, the jock from Can't Hardly Wait, and you put that next to Carlisle Cullen or Coop from Nurse Jackie, or, you know, I always say if I put all my characters in one room, it would be a really fun party, because they're so weirdly different. But that's what makes it fun for me as an actor. Like, if I had to play me all the time and just variations of me, I bore myself to pieces. When I take on a role, a part of it is, have I played this role before? Is this something I can tap into that's new about myself? It gets harder, because I've done comedy, action, drama, you know, sci-fi, fantasy. Like, I've done all different types of, you know. But even like you take a doctor role, right? So I played a doctor in Twilight, and I played a doctor in Nurse Jackie, and I played a doctor in a movie called Countdown. But if you look at those 3 characters, they're so vastly different. You know, like the people behind the coat, the occupation doesn't make the person. You know, so for me, it's all about this person. Is it something new I can explore within myself? And my biggest litmus test is, am I going to be excited to go to work in the morning? Like, if I take this role on, and that litmus test has really served me, because people will say, well, what's your favorite movie? And I say all of them, because every time I go to work, I was always excited to go to work. And there were a few times where, like, so they would come along with this paycheck, and my agent would say, "Hey, you want to do this movie?" And I'd go, "I can't do it. I don't feel like I would service that role. Like, I wouldn't be as excited. It doesn't excite me." And they're like, "Well, can't you get excited because the paycheck's really good?" And I sometimes and most of the time I have to say no, because I don't want to break that litmus test. I don't want to break that rule, because it's served me really well so far. Like, if I can go to work and I know I'm excited to go to work, then that means I'm putting in every bit of passion into that role. And then the rest of it's out in my control. If sometimes somebody will see it, sometimes they won't, sometimes lots of people see it, sometimes the movie's good, and sometimes the director fails and doesn't tell the story properly. But, like, I can say I put in as much passion in every role, because that ride to work is like, I'm excited to go.
And it shows in your performances. I first became aware of the Twilight books. I was a 6th grade teacher for 35 years, which is really scary.
Horror, that's the horror.
That's the horror.
The horror.
But I started to see my students carrying around these big old thick books. And as a 6th grade teacher, anytime I could get my students to read anything, I was excited. But they found these on their own, and they did it by word of mouth. So I asked them, "Okay, what are the books? What is this book that you're reading?" "It's Twilight." And they were so into the Twilight books during that. I remember that one particular year of 6th grade. How did you get the role of Carlisle Cullen?
Well, I didn't. That's a funny story. I'll tell it. So here's how it went. I got a call from my agents at the time, and they said, "Do you want to do a vampire movie?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Why?" I said, "Well, there was a lot of bad vampire movies at that time. There were like these D-list vampire movies that were like, just bad, And I was thinking it was along the lines of that kind of vampire movie. And they said, "No, it's based on a book. It wasn't like a huge, mega successful book yet. It was kind of like an underground, like, following book at that time." And they said, "It's based on this book, and Catherine Hardwicke is directing it." And I said, "Oh, well, I like Catherine Hardwicke. She's done some nice work as a director." And sometimes you're like, I like to think I'm not the smartest man in the room. If there's other people that are interested in something, I should open myself up to it. So I said, "Yeah, well, I like her. When's the audition?" They said, "Tomorrow." "Oh, well, do you have a script?" They said, "No." I said, "Oh, okay. Well, they send you over a couple of pages to audition the scenes." I said, "Is the book is out?" And they said, "Yeah." Okay, so I ran to the bookstore and I got it, because I wanted to know, like, what I was preparing for. I like to prepare, and so I got the book. I was like, I'll just read my role. Skip. Oh, there's Carlisle. Oh, handsomest man in the what? What? Movie star looks. I'm not right for this. So I said. Then I started reading more and more. I said, "Oh, this is actually good." And so I went back to page 1. I started reading it. I was up till like 2 o'clock in the morning. I finished the whole book. And so I went the next day, to the audition. Eyes were all red and, like, bloodshot. "You're perfect." I read for it. And Catherine, the director, was so fun. Like, she actually reads with you. So, like, a lot of times you're doing a scene with somebody, a casting director, and you see the casting director on the corner, out of the corner of your eye. You could tell if they're, like, paying attention or, like, kind of, like, bored to tears. But with Catherine, she just gets in there, and you're reading with her. So I remember one of the scenes was the scene where I'm like, Edward's sucking out the blood from Bella, and so Catherine's playing Bella, and I have my hands around her thigh, and I'm like, this is, if someone walks in right now, this is weird. But I had the best time working with her in the auditions, and I felt really good about it, and I left. And so I called, you start calling your agents, and you're like, "Hey, how did it go? You're on a list." "Okay, is it the list long, or is it 3 people, 9 people?" "You're on a list." "Okay, next week, wait, how'd it go?" "You're still on the list." "Okay." And then I found out I didn't get it. Yeah. So they actually went with another actor, and because he looked a little older, so they were gonna age him up a little bit, because they were worried I looked too young next to the cast, which is the point of the book, because he's
Right.
23 in the book, and the whole
Yeah.
point is he looks too young to have these kids, which is odd. But they thought it might look weird on screen, but that's the point of the book. So I was actually like 34 at the time, which was, you know, a nice compliment that I look too young. But so yeah, they went with an actor who was like 5 years older than me, and I was kind of bummed because I thought, you know, I really thought that one was mine. But okay, so I went to another audition, and I'm sitting there in the waiting room, and there's a book, like a table book, like, you know, those coffee table books, and it says 50 years of vampire making in Hollywood. And it was like, you open it up and there's like all these great pictures of Bela Lugosi and all the Interview with a Vampire and all these fun movies. And I'm like, wow, the universe really rubbing it in. I didn't get this movie. Thank you. But I liked the book, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna write the name of this book down because there's other Twilight movies. Maybe they'll make a second book. Maybe I don't know what the second book is. Maybe I could be in that one. Or maybe I'll work with Catherine again. But I want to show her that I appreciated her because she was so kind. So I wrote it down, I tracked it down, and I sent her the book. And the inscription in the book said, "Hey, Catherine, sorry this one didn't work out. Hope you make a classic that makes, you know, this list of wonderful vampire movies. And maybe we'll work together in the future sometime." And that was it. I let it go. And unbeknownst to me, the actor that they went to, either his contract didn't work out or his schedule didn't work out. And so they turned to Catherine and said, "Well, who do you want to go to next?" And she just happened to get my book that day. And she looked down, she said, "What about Peter Facinelli?" And so I always joked to Catherine that I bought my role for $29.99.
Let's talk about the Twilight movies kind of in sequence, and if you can, just share with us maybe a memorable moment from each one, and we'll start with, you know, Twilight from 2008, and as you said, directed by Catherine Hardwicke.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll take it back to 2008. Here are some memorable highlights I remember. I remember getting to the airport, and you know, I at the airport, I got on the plane with Jackson Rathbone. Kellen wasn't there. Nikki Reed, and I don't know if Kristen was on that plane, but I do remember Nikki, and I remember Jackson. Oh, and Ashley Greene. Those three. And I met Nikki, and she was super sweet. And I thought, oh, I guess this is the cast. And it's always like first day of school when you're meeting people. You're like, I hope they like me. We had no idea we were going to be on such a journey together. But I remember that meeting them at the airport. We all got on the plane together to go to Portland to shoot this little movie. Then I remember working with the cast. We were doing like baseball rehearsals. You know, and it was so much fun because I played baseball growing up. So like I was teaching a lot of the cast how to play, and that was fun because I felt like a dad mentoring his kids, you know. And Catherine had us do silly stuff, which was fun. It was like she had us do like cat classes, you know, because vampires are supposed to be very feline and move and slink. So we were sitting around doing cat classes together, and we bonded quick over that one. And then I remember nobody knew what we were making, and like Rob, you know, wasn't well known back then, so we would go after work on the weekend, a little bar, and he would just start playing open mic, you know, bring his guitar, start singing. Oh, this kid's got a good voice. That's kind of cool. But the bar was empty. You know what I mean? Which was kind of fun because it was like that movie was like kind of ours. You know, it belonged to that. But there were moments where, and I use this analogy all the time. You never know. You know, because there were moments where I felt like I've been on movies where I'm like, oh, this is gonna be huge, and it's not. And then this one, I think we thought the opposite. I was like, oh, no one's going to see this movie. Because the first day of filming was like, it was raining. It was the baseball scene. It was raining. People's makeup was running. Their hair was all matted. I was like, oh, you look terrible. They're like, you look terrible. I was like, I don't think anybody's going to see this movie. And then like 2 hours in, 3 hours in, they were all huddled in a shed, like shivering in this little, under trying to stay out of the rain. And it was a frantic day because we didn't know, like, should we keep shooting the baseball stuff or should we move to another sequence? And they said to Catherine, "Dude, what do you want to do?" And she goes, I don't know, just put hats on people. You wear a hat, no hat, hat for you, no hat for you. Let's go. And I was like, now we have hats? We shot 3 hours without hats. This is not going to cut together. Like, I just thought the whole thing was like this weird broken thing. But it's like, we had no idea what she had this beautiful vision in her mind. We just kept showing up doing our stuff, and she did her stuff. And when we watched the movie, we're like, oh, wow. Very pleasantly surprised that it was, like so beautiful, well done, and she's so talented. So that was Twilight. Those are some highlights there. And I'll give you one more. So then when the movie ended, I remember going on vacation. I took my wife and my kid to Hawaii, and there were all I swam out to this little deck in the, like, it was like 30. You know how those decks kind of float off the ocean and just swim out there? Usually there's nobody on it. I was just kind of swimming out there, kind of laying down. And these two teenage girls were swim, and they go, "Are you playing Carlisle Cullen?" I was like, "Yeah, how'd you know that?" It's like, "Oh, we know, we read all the books." And I was like, the internet wasn't like what it was today. So I was like, that's weird. How do they know? The movie hasn't even come out yet. That's good. And then I started looking at the beach, and everybody on the beach was reading the book. I went for a walk. I was like, that's Twilight over there. They're reading the book too. That's really weird. So it was like this thing that kind of grew by the time we finished the filming to the opening. And then I remember being terrified opening night because I was like, people camped out for 3 days and there was such an expectation. I was like, oh, all these happy people are going to be really angry if they don't like the movie, and they're going to come after us with pitchforks and run us out of town. But thankfully they liked it, and I'm here today. So that's Twilight. New Moon, I'll as a shorter experience, because this thing happened where it's such a juggernaut of like excitement, and we were like, let's go back into production. So excited, and we're going in, and we only worked a week on that one because the cast, the Twilight, like the Cullens aren't in that movie that much. So I was kind of bummed because I was like excited to like bring more to this character, but the scenes were really like fun. Even though there were less of them, for me, there were some fun ones. Like the birthday scene was super fun, and the stitching scene with Bella was a nice scene that I got to have with just Bella. And I'll tell you a quick story about that. So they came to me and said, so you have to stitch up Kristen in the scene. We're going to give you some foam pads, and we want you to we're going to make some epoxy like stuff, and you're going to actually film it. Like, we're going to film you actually, stitching it up. So we want you to practice. Oh, that sounds fun. So I'm doing this in my hotel room, and it's like stitching 2 blankets. It's not, it doesn't feel like the texture of skin or the epoxy they're going to use. So I said, I went to the grocery store and I bought chicken breasts. And I would slice them open, and I'd suture them, and I'd slice them up. And they had a doctor come and teach me how to stitch up. I could stitch anybody up if you want. Probably not. I get sued. Don't fall. Don't get hurt. So I ended up, there were chicken breasts all over my hotel room, just laying around. And then the maid came, the housekeeper, one day, and I came home, and the hotel room was all cleaned up, and all of my chickens were lined up in the refrigerator, nice and neat. And I was like, oh no, she's gonna call the cops on me. Like, she probably thinks I'm a serial killer. She probably goes home and be like, I don't know, this guy's crazy. He's got these stitched up chickens. I just put them in the refrigerator. I don't know. He's either making a dish or he's, insane. Luckily, nothing happened. But I did bring it to work, and I was like, Kristen, take a look at this. Am I getting good? And she goes, no, I'd never let you stitch me up. I was like, but I thought I did a good job. So that's New Moon.
I'm going to interrupt you just for a second, Peter, because we're running low.
Because we don't have 5 more hours?
Well, no, but I want to give you have such a rabid audience here. I want to give them a
rapid
chance
fire.
to ask
Great.
some questions.
Sorry, I talk a lot.
So, does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask Peter? Yes.
I'm just going to say yes or no from now on. I've talked way too much.
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay, go ahead.
Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask Peter? Yes.
I'm just going to say yes or no from now on. I've talked way too much.
Oh, no, not at all.
I don't know if you can tell us, but who was the actor that first got the Cullen one?
Oh, I wish I could say. The reason why I don't tell people is because I don't. It's not my story to tell. I don't want that to be all over the internet or news and like people talking about that or make that actor feel weird or like. But so like I would never. If he ever said, "Hey, I had the role," and whatever happened, that's his story to tell. But I don't want to. I would never want to bring that up. But he's a good actor. Like you, I think you would know him.
Probably.
Rhymes with Brad Pitt. No, no, it wasn't Brad Pitt.
Do we have any other questions? Here? Then we have one in back.
Do you
also.
play games?
Can I what?
Do you play games?
Do I play games?
Like Fortnite,
Like what kind of games?
like Fortnite and stuff?
You know, I don't, and I tell you why. Because if I did, I'd never leave my house. Like I know I have like an addictive personality that would like just kind of play games all day long, and so I have so many things I want to do that like I choose to put my energy elsewhere so that I get other more creative things done. Not that games aren't creative, but like I know I would start to get too addicted to it. So like like I'll tell you, I took an RV trip here. It was so much fun to drive, from California. I came all the way from California. No, from Los Angeles. I came all the way from Los Angeles, and I went to this little campground, parked the RV, and all these kids were outside playing in this park, and I thought, wow, that's so nice. It's so nice to see. They weren't, they were playing run around and on the jungle gym. It's like, a lot of times I feel like we're too stuck in the house on our gadgets. And it's fun, but it's a time suck. You know what I mean? So like, I really, I choose not to so that I could put that energy other places.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
Right
Jim?
back here, Charlie.
So besides the stitching, over your various roles of playing doctors, did you learn anything else, like medical tips or anything?
Oh yeah, I mean, mostly in Twilight, I didn't really get to do much doctoring. Even when she was pregnant, I was like, oh great, Carlisle will deliver the baby. I was like, I don't get to deliver the baby? I'm a doctor. So I actually did a show called Nurse Jackie though, and I worked for 7 years on that. And there was a lot of medical patients that would come in. And so I learned a lot on that. You know what I mean? Like what to look for and like, look, listen, feel, and checking people's pulses. And I wouldn't practice medicine on anybody because I don't want to get sued. I'll tell you a funny story though. I was on a plane, and the guy next to me all of a sudden became kind of catatonic, and the wife was like freaking out a little bit. And the flight attendant was like, "Is there a doctor on the plane?" And I was like, "No." And I was thinking in my head, I think this guy might have had a stroke. I was diagnosing him and. Is there a doctor on the plane? No, I don't answer. Please, if there's a doctor on the plane, please come to the front. And I'm like, I'm not going to get sued. I'm not doing it. And thankfully, after some water and stuff, he started, it was okay. But when I left, as I was walking out, I told his wife, I said, listen, I'm not a doctor. I play one on TV. You might want to get him checked out for a stroke. I'm not saying he did have one, but there are some similarities there. But I'm not a doctor. So.
That's great. Hey, I want to encourage everyone who's in attendance to go by and see Peter before the end of the day. Go by, talk to him. You can see what kind of person he is. You're going to get a personal experience, and you're going to get that warmth. And so I just encourage you to go by Peter's table, say hi, look at the things that he has for sale there, and just give him some love, because he is actually one of the best interviews that I've ever done.
Thank you, man.
So
Thank
I
you.
am very, very happy that we got to do this afternoon, and that you
Thank
came.
you guys for all coming. I mean, it would have been really awkward if I came in here as like 2 people. So,
Not at all.
appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much, Peter.